Hi, happy Friday. Wow, another week already. Can you believe it? Well, that was so fun to be with some of you at the Zoom meeting yesterday. You guys are so cute and fun. I just love you. And those who couldn't be there, I'm sorry. It was a bad time for you, but next week I'll do it again, and I'll do it in the afternoon so that hopefully some of you who couldn't be there could be there next time. Today we're going to keep reading our fantastic Mr. Fox and find out what happened to him. Remember yesterday there was a woman coming down the steps into the cellar. Now the cellar is kind of like a basement, but it's not fixed up too nice. It's just to store food in usually. And a lot of times it has a dirt floor, has some shelves in it maybe. And so this is where they were at, was inside the cellar, and it's right underneath the house where the people live in. So read on. Here we go. Chapter 16, The Woman. Here's a picture of the woman. "Quick," said Mr. Fox, "hide." He and Badger and the smallest fox jumped up on the shelf and crouched behind the row of big cider jars. Peering down the jars, they saw a huge woman coming on into the cellar. At the foot of the steps, the woman paused, looking to the right and left. Then she turned and headed straight for the place where Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox were hiding. She stopped right in front of them. The only thing between her and them was a row of cider jars. She was so close, Mr. Fox could hear the sound of her breathing. Peeping through the crack between the two bottles, he noticed she was carrying a big rolling pin in one hand. "How many will he want this time, Mrs. Bean?" the woman shouted, and from the top of the steps the other voice called back, "Bring him up 2 or 3 jars." "He drank 4 yesterday, Mrs. Bean." "Yes, but he won't want that many today because he's not going to be up there more than a few hours longer. He says that fox is bound to make a run for it this morning. It can't possibly stay down the hole another day without food." The woman in the cellar reached out and lifted a jar of cider from the shelf. The jar she took was next but one to the jar behind which Mr. Fox was crouching. "I'll be glad when that rotten brute is killed and strung up on the front porch," she called. "And by the way, Mrs. Bean, your husband promised I could have the tail as a souvenir." "Oh, the tail has been all shot to pieces," said the voice from upstairs. "Didn't you know that?" "You mean it's ruined?" "Of course it's ruined. They shot the tail but missed the fox." "Oh, heck," said the big woman. "I did so want the tail." "You can have the head instead, Mabel. You can get it stuffed and hang it on your bedroom wall. Hurry up now with that cider." "Yes, ma'am, I'm coming," said the big woman, and she took a second jar from the shelf. Here's the picture. "If she takes one more, she'll see us," thought Mr. Fox. He could feel the small fox's body pressed tightly against his own, quivering with excitement. "Will 2 be enough, Mrs. Bean, or shall I take 3? "My goodness, Mabel, I don't care as long as you get a move on it." "Then 2 it is," said the huge woman, speaking to herself now. "He drinks too much anyway." Carrying a jar in each hand and with the rolling pin tucked under one arm, she walked away across the cellar. At the foot of the steps she paused and looked around, sniffing the air. "There's a rat down here, Mrs. Bean. I can smell him." "Then poison them, woman, poison them. You know where the poison's kept." "Yes, ma'am," Mabel said. She climbed slowly out of sight up the steps, and the door slammed. "Quick," said Mr. Fox. "Grab a jar each and run for it." Rat soon as stood on his high shelf and shrieked, "What did I tell you? You nearly got nabbed, didn't you? You nearly gave the game away. You keep out of here from now on. I don't want you around. This is my place." "You," said Mr. Fox, "are going to get poisoned." "Poppycock," said the rat. "I sit up here and watch her put the stuff down. She'll never get me." Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox ran across the cellar, clutching their gallon jar each. "Goodbye, Rat," they called out as they disappeared through the hole in the wall. "Thanks for the lovely cider." Thieves! Shrieked the rat. Robbers! Bandits! Burglars! There's the rat up on the shelf. Chapter 17, The Great Feast. Back to the tunnel they ran. They paused as Mr. Fox could brick up the hole in the wall. He was humming to himself as he put the brick back in place. I can still taste that glorious cider, he said. What an impudent fellow Rat is. He had bad manners, Badger said. All rats have bad manners. I've never met a polite rat yet. And he drinks too much, said Mr. Fox, putting the last brick in place. There we are. Now home to the feast. They grabbed their jars of cider and off they went. Mr. Fox went in front. The smallest fox came next, and Badger last. Along the tunnel they flew, past the turning that led to the Brunts's mighty storehouse, past Bogus's chicken house number 1, and then up the long home stretched toward the place where they knew Mrs. Fox would be waiting. Keep up, my darling, shouted Mr. Fox. We'll soon be there. Thinking what's waiting for us at the other end, and just think what they're bringing home with us in these jars. Just think what we're bringing home in these jars. That ought to cheer up poor Mrs. Fox. Mr. Fox sang a little song as he ran. Home again swiftly I glide, back to my beautiful bride. She'll not feel so rotten as soon as she gotten some cider inside her, inside. Then Badger joined in. Oh, poor Mrs. Badger, he cried. So hungry she's never near died. She's very nearly died. She'll not feel so hollow if only she'll swallow some cider inside her, inside. Oh, here's a picture. Them running along the tunnel. They were still singing as they rounded the final corner and burst into the most wonderful, amazing sight any of them had ever seen. The feast was just beginning. A large dining room had been hollowed out of the earth, and in the middle of it, seated around a huge table, were no less than 29 animals. They were Mrs. Fox and 3 small foxes, Mrs. Badger and 3 small badgers, Mr. and Mrs. Mole and 4 small moles, Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit and 5 small rabbits, Weasel and Mr. Weasel and 6 small weasels. The table was covered with chickens and ducks and geese and ham and bacon, and everyone tucking into the lovely food. There is the feast. My darling, cried Mrs. Fox, jumping up and hugging Mr. Fox. We couldn't wait. Please forgive us. Then she hugged the smallest fox of all, and Mrs. Badger hugged Badger, and everyone hugged everyone else. Amid shouts of joy and the great jars of cider were placed upon the table, and Mr. Fox and Badger and Smallest Fox sat down with the others. You must remember, no one has eaten a thing for several days. They were ravenous. Did you figure out what ravenous means? Oh, so hungry they couldn't even stop eating. So for a while there was no conversation at all. There was only the sounds of crunching, chewing, as the animals attacked the succulent food. I wonder what succulent means. Figure it out. Succulent food. At last Badger stood up. He raised his glass of cider and called out, "A toast! I want you all to stand and drink a toast to our dear friend who has saved our lives this day, Mr. Fox." To Mr. Fox they all shouted, standing up and raising their glass. To Mr. Fox, long may he live. Let's see there. Oops, sorry. There's Mr. Badger. No, I can't find it. There it is. Then Mrs. Fox got shyly to her feet and said, "I don't want to make a speech. I just want to say one thing, and that is, my husband is a fantastic fox." Everyone clapped and cheered, and then Mr. Fox stood up himself. "This delicious meal," he began. Then he stopped. In the silence that followed, he let fly a tremendous belch. There was laughter and more clapping. This delicious meal, my friends, he went on, is, of course, of Monsieur Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. More cheering and clapping. And I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. He let another colossus belch fly. Did you figure out what belch means? Big burp. Better out than in, said Badger. There's Fox and his wife toasting. There's Fox again, still toasting. Thank you, said Mr. Fox, grinning hugely. But now, my friends, let us be serious. Let us think of tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. If we go out, we'll be killed, right? Right, they shouted. We'll be shot before we've gone a yard, said Badger. Exactly, said Mr. Fox. But who wants to go out anyway? Let me ask you that. We are diggers, every one of us. We hate the outside. The outside is full of enemies. We only go out because we have to get food for our families. But now, my friends, we have an entire new setup. We have a safe tunnel leading to 3 of the finest stores in the world. We do indeed, said Badger. I've seen them. And you know what that means, said Mr. Fox. It means that none of us have need to ever go out of the tunnel and go out into the open again. There was a buzz of excitement around the table. I therefore invite you all, Mr. Fox went on to stay here with me forever. Forever, they cried. My goodness, how marvelous. And Rabbit said to Mrs. Rabbit, my dear, just think, we're never going to be shot at again in our lives. We will make, said Mr. Fox, a little underground village with streets and houses on each side, separate house for badgers and moles and rabbits, and weasels and foxes. And every day I shall go shopping for us all, and every day we will eat like kings. The cheering that followed this speech went on for minutes. That is the end of that chapter. Okay, in today's story, will you draw out a picture about the new village that they're going to be setting up? A village for all the different animals? I wonder what it looks like. Do you think it's really going to work? Is it going to work to have all those animals stay down there together and keep eating the food from the farmers? Tell me if you think it's going to work or it's not going to work, and why you think it's going to work or not going to work. I can't wait to see them. Have an awesome day and a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday. Bye-bye.